England versus Scotland. I don't know if you guys know.
You're a Scot.
I'm half and half. So my mum's Scottish, my dad's English. I'm confused. I hate this game. Hate it, Hugh. So I mean, I'm going to just throw it straight to you, mate. You take it away, and then I'll try to say as little as possible.
Listen, looking at their first two performances, I think maybe there's a sense that England are sort of really confident. We've already got onto this cloud nine feeling. I don't know if that's just because we've got those sentiments back from reaching the World Cup semi-final, because I don't think England were as comprehensive against Croatia as they maybe could have been. I do think there are some team selection issues going into this game against Scotland. Scotland are going to play with a back five essentially, or a 3-4-3, whichever way you want to look at it. That a 3-5-2 in many ways, but I think for me with England, they're going to stick with the same formation. It's all about personnel. Raheem Sterling came into that game and he was the biggest threat for me. I don't see as much of Harry Kane as I would have liked. I think the big thing for Scotland is they had 19 shots. They absolutely worked themselves into the ground in that opening game. Of course, we know the brilliance of Patrick Schick meant they lost the game 2-0. But actually, I think at the end of that game, they're going to take some confidence because they should have scored at least one, probably more than one. If Lyndon Dykes had his shooting boots on, Che Adams, good chances for Scotland that just weren't taken. On another day, it's a very different story. So we're looking at them thinking they lost to the Czech Republic. England should win this easily, but I don't see it the same way, especially as it's the old enemy, the relationship between the two countries. Even though they played 25 years ago at Euro 96, it was a brilliant match. So both countries will be seeing it as possibly a repeat. And I think that familiarity with some of the Scotland team and the players that they play within the Premier League will almost mean they're a little bit more comfortable going into the game against England. I think this one could be a cracker. I'll predict it in a few moments' time. But Mark, I need to ask you, are you as confident in England as some of the newspapers seem to be back home after that first win?
No. Listen, I think that I think England long term, I think in terms of the tournament, they've got a very, very tough route to the final. So I think this suggests that they're on the way to win it. I think that's a bit premature because, second round is going to be tough. If they get a softer route there, quarterfinal could be tough. But I do think in terms of what I've seen so far, England do look, they've got great personnel, they've got great players, and I think they've got a great striker in Harry Kane. I think a top centre forward in this competition will take you a long way. I do think that the Scotland game, on paper, as we know, England have the better players. They've got a lot of Champions League experience. They should win this quite comfortably. But this game means more to Scotland than it does to England. And the English players will say, no, it doesn't. But the England players will be looking at playing Germany, playing France, playing Spain. That's what they kind of raise their games for. Playing Scotland to the England players is not as big a game as it is for the Scotland players. And I don't think you can kind of overstate what that means to the Scotland players. I think that this is a massive, massive game. The backs are against the wall. They have to get a result here. And I do think that there'll be tackles flying in from Scott McTominay, Andy Robertson will be leaving tackles in there. I'm not sure they've got quality up front with Lyndon Dykes. I don't think he's good enough to cause a real problem. But, aerially, you never know. But I do think that England, yes, I think they are a contender. If they had an easy route to the final, I'd say they had a chance. But I just worry that when it gets down to the crunch, they weren't that great against Croatia. They didn't create too many chances. And if they play against a team like France or Portugal, or even Germany, if Germany gets some confidence, they're going to not have the ball, they're going to find it difficult. And the psychological thing comes into it as well. So I think, yes, England will beat Scotland. I think they'll come out of the group quite comfortably. But beyond that, it's very premature to say football's coming home, as you say, that horrible phrase.
Mark, let me quickly ask you. I think England's long-term success might come from changing their formation. Do you think the 4-2-3-1, although it might work against Scotland, is going to take them all the way against the bigger teams? Or do they need to go back to the 3-4-3, more defenders, wing-backs?
It's horses for courses, isn't it? I think the 4-2-3-1 can work, but I really think that Jude Bellingham has something to add to this team. I think when you play him in the two, he brings more to it going forward than maybe Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips do. Calvin Phillips was excellent against Croatia, as was Declan Rice, but I think going forward, you need somebody a bit more. You look at Kante, he's not just a destroyer. This is the myth about N'Golo Kante. He also creates going forward as well. I think Bellingham has that in his game. So I think the system is okay. I think it's a case of changing the personnel. I don't think you can go too far in the system with a right-sided left-back. I think against better teams, you need more balance. But I do think the system is okay. It's just a case of which players you fit in further forward. But they've got the options at least. They have got a lot of options in England. That's the good thing. They've got to be able to play, so many different defenders, so many combinations in midfield is a good thing. So it's just a case of not overcomplicating it and overthinking it and just picking the best players in the best system for each game.
Yeah, Hugh, I think maybe you're alluding to the fact of playing three at the back. I think this is a good shout for that, for the Scotland game, because I think you've got Robertson and Tierney, who I think Steve Clarke was saying that they expected him to be back for this game. And if you've got that, having watched that game, the frustration from the Scottish half of me was that on the right-hand side in O'Donnell, Scotland had nothing, really, absolutely nothing going forward. So it all came down that left-hand side, which we knew was going to happen anyway. And Robertson just probably had more touches than any other Scotland player. I would be amazed if it wasn't that case. So the focus will be down that left-hand side. So I wonder if you play maybe Mings, Stones and Walker, and then Reece James as the right side of the four in a 3-4-3. I wonder if that completely kind of stops that side of it. And like you said, Mark, in terms of playing Trippier as the left-sided left back, I think that has to stop for this game. I think with O'Donnell there's a real opportunity down that left-hand side, and Luke Shaw or Chilwell need to play in this game. And then I guess the other talking point, Hugh, is Jack Grealish. Is this a game for Jack Grealish? What do you think?
I think he'll try and stay confident in the team that he chose in the first game. I think he'll be happy with the performance. Jack Grealish, I think, is the player for any game in this competition. His form coming into it was great. He seems to have that element of wanting to impress, desperate to get on the ball, desperate to make something happen. But I think Raheem Sterling showed that he's a constant threat. He is a constant threat in behind with the speed, the first 15 or so yards, absolutely blistering. And the run for the goal and the pick out from Calvin Phillips show that it just takes one moment for England to get on the scoreboard with the quality that they have. But I think elsewhere, Phil Foden maybe could lose his place. And what do you do then? Do you play Raheem Sterling on the right-hand side, possibly bring Jack Grealish in on the left if you're looking for a change? Because I think he deserves an opportunity. I'm just not sure if it's in this game, because, of course, if England win, there might be a chance for him to play in that final match against the Czech Republic and maybe ease his way into a starting position with a great performance there. But look, England have a lot of selection dilemmas when you think about it, simply due to the quality of their squad. And once again, it's all about Gareth Southgate, that manager. Is he going to be the man to make the right decisions to take England through to greater things? Might be enough to get out the group. Will it be enough to bring it home? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think there's so much choice, isn't there, Mark? So I guess the difficult thing for Southgate is, normally there's an idea that, in tournament football, you want to get that chemistry going. You want to have the same players playing a lot of the time. But when you have this much depth, there is that option there for him to take. Do you think that is one of the biggest problems almost that Southgate has is how many changes you make?
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about these great players and haven't mentioned Jadon Sancho yet, and what a season he's had at Borussia Dortmund. And, Marcus Rashford didn't start the weekend. Sancho didn't get a look in. So, in terms of Grealish, I think Grealish will come into his own in the knockout stages, maybe as a substitute in the final 20 minutes, because he wins so many free kicks. That for me is when he's advantageous. He's a great player, Grealish, but he's not got that blinding pace that Sterling's got to get away from people. So I think he comes into his own when teams are tired and they're making fouls. And the final third, he could be England's, not a secret weapon, but the kind of the trump card they've got in those latter stages of games to win set pieces, because obviously set pieces are a big thing in international football, as any top level football now.
Okay, so I think actually I'd like to see Grealish play this one, and I'd actually be okay with Sterling popping out, just because I think Scotland are going to defend really deep. And in terms of one-on-one situations, again, on that right-hand side, I think there could be a lot of joy against the likes of O'Donnell and Hendry if he plays again. In terms of predictions, I'm going to sit on the fence. I'm going to go 1-1 straight away, get that one out there, because that suits England are pretty much there. And then Scotland is still in with a chance. They can go and beat Croatia and everyone's happy. Certainly my parents are happy. Hugh, what's your prediction for this one?
I just hope Scotland play some players who are slightly better on the ball. Che Adams definitely to start. I'd love to see James Forrest play right wing back. I know he's not the greatest defender in the world in that position, but certainly attacking and dribbling, delivery, he would be a huge improvement on that right-hand side. I think Scotland just have to go for it. They've got Croatia in their final game. Throw the kitchen sink at England and see what happens. But I still think England will probably have too much for them. I'm going to say 2-1. Mark, what do you think?
I've got to be careful because I've got to go to Glasgow next week for the Croatia game, so I don't want to say too much, but I'll be honest, I think England win this quite easily. I think it's going to be 3-0. I think England will score early and they'll coast it. I just think the quality will count. They've got much better players than Scotland. That is a fact. They've got a lot better players than Scotland. I don't think the FA Cup style, edge to this game will make a difference that England win comfortably.
Okay.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.